David Dijulio has been an attorney for 32 years and has handled 3,000 real estate cases. His office is in Glendale, and he's the past president of the Glendale Bar Association and the Southern California Italian Lawyers Association. Let's meet David Dijulio. Hello, David.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for coming in. Please sit down. Well, that is very impressive. 3,000 cases, but here's a question. How many of those 3,000 did you win?
All but 5.
That's amazing. Man, if you were a baseball manager, you'd have lifetime employment. So well done. What do you attribute that to? How have you been so successful?
Being careful with the cases I pick, knowing which ones to settle and which ones to try.
All right.
Working hard and being pretty smart.
Okay, well that's a good combo. Working hard and being smart, plus the other two. So, in a real estate transaction, who's looking out for the buyer and seller?
That's a really good question. It should be a lot of people, but most time it's nobody. There's the real estate brokers, but they're really getting a commission if the deal closes, not if it doesn't close. There's the title company, the escrow company, but they're not really doing anything for the buyer and the seller.
Now, are you representing both buyer and seller in a transaction, or one or the other?
One or the other.
Okay.
That's one difference with a lawyer. He only represents one party, whereas brokers sometimes will represent both sides and maybe neither side.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to try to, let's say you're representing the buyer. You're not necessarily going to stick it to the seller. You're going to try to facilitate a transaction in a way that is fair to the buyer. Again, you're representing the buyer.
Absolutely. And making sure that somebody's not sticking it to the buyer, my client.
Right, okay. Now, what are the key documents for a buyer?
There are a pile of documents they get in the process. It's overwhelming and confusing. There are 4 key documents: the contract, the title report, the transfer disclosure statement, or TDS as it's known, and the seller's questionnaire. Those 4 documents they should find in the pile, throw the rest of them away.
Well, what is a transfer disclosure statement?
It's a statement by the seller where he's asked or she is asked key questions like, are there any construction without building permits? Has anybody without a contractor's license worked on this property? Are there any encroachments, meaning does this property somehow extend onto the next property, or does something on the neighbor property extend onto the property you're buying?
Now, what about a title report? Why is a title report important?
Title report is really important because it tells you things about your property that you have no other way to find out. 1, it tells you how many liens are against the property. 2, it tells you if there are any easements or rights to drive over your property. Maybe there's a shared driveway. It tells you whether there's taxes due on the property. It tells you whether there's judgments that are recorded against the seller that are now against this property.
Now, should a buyer and seller always employ a lawyer for every real estate transaction?
No. 1, the seller probably doesn't need a lawyer as much as the buyer does. As to the buyer, I think they should. They're buying a piece of property worth roughly $1 million, plus or minus a few $100,000. That's a big investment. They've got real estate brokers they're going to pay $60,000 to handle the transaction. Why not spend $500, $1,000 on an attorney to look at the documents for you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There really are no small real estate transactions anymore, at least not in Southern California. That as you said, if you're talking $1 million in some other field, $1 million to invest in a business or something, you better believe you're going to have all that checked out and all the I's dotted and T's crossed with an attorney. This is the same thing. $1 million is $1 million, whether it's in real estate or so a limited partnership.
Absolutely, and particularly for homes, most people that are buying $1 million home have never bought anything for $100,000, $500,000, $1 million. Whereas people are buying $10 million businesses, they probably have done this before. So it's all the more reason they need a little help.
Now, your office is in Glendale. Do you restrict yourself to Glendale real estate transactions, or what's the geographic area that you cover?
We have cases in Ventura. We're handling an easement boundary problem. In Ventura, we've got cases as far south as San Diego.
Well, David Dijulio, I really appreciate you coming in, but I encourage anyone who, especially buyers, as you said, that are about to conduct a real estate transaction to get in touch with you, because it's like insurance. I mean, really, boy, the peace of mind for that amount of money that you gain certainly seems like it's a great investment. So thank you very much, David.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.